Okay, welcome everyone. I'm so glad to have you here in this sacred space. Just if you haven't already, I ask that you call in your guides, your spirit helpers, and ancestors. Our intent is to have a conversation for the purpose of growing, healing, and just speaking our truth and whatever perceptions that we have. And as always, with the intent of raising vibration for ourselves and for others, whether that be here in this circle or those that will listen to us afterwards. Please take what resonates and leave the rest behind. Remember that each of us have our own perspective on things. We are all on our own journey. And as we listen to each other, maybe we'll learn something, maybe we'll just hear a new perspective. And if it sits right with you, great. If you have a question that you want to ask each other, please feel free to. This is meant to be a flowing conversation. And so really it's not about me facilitating, but us just having a really enjoyable evening talking about a specific topic. So tonight's topic is on words. And so the triggers, maybe defining words, labels, powerful words, and then also words that are inverted. And what I mean by that is that words that people use now that they think maybe are negative, or that they hear a word, they think it might be negative, but yet originally that word may have been used in a very divine, sacred way in the beginning, but it had been changed so that we think it's negative now. And so with learning about these kinds of inversions and these changes that were made over, a long time, it will help us to grow in understanding that these words maybe are not what we thought they were, or maybe they won't become triggers anymore. Then also to, as we go through these words, a lot of things will come up, like our belief system, things that we were taught as when we were, throughout our whole life, what these words may really mean. And it's just our different perspectives, and all is honored here and all is welcome here. And so, some may have an awareness that they'd like to share, and that's what I encourage you all do, is to just speak your own truth and to enjoy the conversation. And so tonight I thought what we would do is just, so I mentioned the subtopics, which is the triggers, defining a word, a label of a word, using our words as being powerful, or inverted or changed words. So whatever comes up on a word that we are talking about, you can pick whatever of those you want to talk about, or the why, or the how, or anything about the word. It doesn't have to be just one set thing or anything that I've listed here. So this is an open conversation for all of you to just speak from your heart and whatever comes in. Let's see. So what I thought I would do first is just throw out a word. And for a lot of people, it is a trigger word. We don't have to stick with trigger words, like I said. And so as we go through the conversation, we'll just let it flow. So when I say the trigger word, we can all participate in thinking of a synonym, a word that means basically the same thing. So where someone might use this one word, you might think of it as one specific thing, or put an attachment or a physicality on it, where it may mean more than that. And so as we go through and just start popping these words out, and any of you can throw out words, it's not, I'm just starting the conversation again. So the first word that was a trigger for me and that I worked through was God. And some of us have talked about that, over just even the last few days. And, I just thought maybe we could just throw out some synonyms for the word God. What is God? Or what's another name for God?
So I'll go. Source is my favorite.
Yes, I
in English.
agree. That I think that's probably the word, Chris, that came to my mind first when someone says God. And when I was triggered by the word, I think it's because I was so involved with religion in a structured or organized religion for so long, and being taught a certain way about God, that when someone else would say that word, it would be a little bit triggering for me, because as I've come into my own awareness, now I realize what the word God truly means. And so yeah, that's another word for it: source, consciousness, right? There's other words we can use as well.
Yeah,
Well, I find it really interesting because I have a trigger with the word God. And I was just realizing that it's probably has to do with the patriarchy that I've grown up with, because the word goddess is the one that I like.
Yes,
Hmm.
I like that.
and I think God probably is could be a trigger word for a lot of people based on, like you said, whatever their background has been, whether it could be Catholic, Christian, Mormon, whatever one that people might have gone into. And a lot of that is the labels that were put with whatever God and whatever thing, whatever attachments were given to that. And I think that is a reason that could be a trigger, that could be such a trigger word. And why, and I think that's also why it's one of the most confused word, is because like I think it, like when we talk about source or universe, I think everyone has a pretty similar idea of what that means. I mean, you may have a slight difference, but it's still pretty similar. Where if you mention the word God, you might have one person whose God is this, and one's God who is this, and one's God who is this powerful person who and could damn people for anything like that. And I think that's the reason it could be a trigger word, is because of the way it was used for a lot of people in their history, in their lifetime, just because of that. And then but I think the good thing is, I think when you have I think that's, and obviously this is an opinion, and as you mentioned before, my perspective is, I think when you have an idea of who it is you really are, it almost really doesn't matter what you call it, because you know what it is. It doesn't even really have to have a name. We just all kind of get that idea. But I think that's one of the reasons we have this, is because it is important to understand, when you have communications, when you are talking to other people, what God could mean to other people.
Exactly. Yeah. So for instance, there's a young member in my family who came to me and said, I don't believe in God. And it's just like, okay, yeah, that's good. I mean, that's okay, because her perspective is what God is as a physical, or a spirit, that is telling everybody else what to do, or like who knows, whatever her perception is of what God is. She's like, no, that's not what I believe in. So then, speaking about the word God, then what is God? What is source? What is that source consciousness, that the universe, there's so many different, Christ consciousness. I mean, there's so many different words that you can put on the same label as God, but what is it truly? So my sister asked me that once, and the first word that came in was energy. That's like the most basic answer I think that you can give. But if anybody else wants to chime in on what their perception is on what God is, what source is, what the universe, that power of creation, the creative power, then maybe that's part of the definition. But if anybody wants to dive into that a little bit, so that those that listen to this later on can see what we're talking about and what we mean by source or consciousness or whatever. And when they think, or when they hear the word God, then they'll know, oh, maybe God is this other thing, and I resonate with it being said this way and maybe not that way, but yet it is the same thing. So maybe when someone does say that word, I'm okay with it because I know it means this. So then we come into that awareness. And so that's why I thought maybe defining words too, why we're talking about labeling words as this one entity being God, which that's not what it is. So go ahead, anybody that wants to chime in.
Can you guys hear me? Real quick, I know I should be driving, but evidence. That was a pivotal point for me in belief of something bigger than myself. The evidence of miracles or evidence of things that just we know are not coincidental. Or so I was sitting in a meeting, in a 12-step meeting once, and this lady with 40-something years, clean and sober. I was talking about how I have such a problem with the word God because of my religious stuff growing up, and she said, Michelle, just name your God evidence. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing, like, you know, evidence of creation, and because God and science all work together for me. And so, and then I was able to make up my own God of my understanding, like my God is loving and my God is caring and forgiving, and I just need to learn to trust in my God. That's all I got. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I love
Drive
that.
careful.
I think energy is such a perfect word for it, because it really is where, in a way, where everything starts. And I think we what we've associated the word God with, and I don't know, like I said, everyone's background, but like when you go to a like, or it could be a Christian church, a Catholic church, a Mormon church, and we have these pictures of God. And in a way, God is represented as a human. And I think that's what throws everybody off, is because we are all these separate things. We're like, so if God's one human, how can he be in other parts if he's human? And how does that work? And I think that's what I think throws everyone off, is like, how can you have different gods that be one God when there's different people? And I think that's the biggest thing, I think, that throws everyone for a loop. And when you mention the word energy, and I had a mentor who I think explained this to me extremely well when he talks about how God can be in anything and everything. And the way he uses it, the way that he puts it is like, so for example, I have this glass of water. It's pretty empty right now, but pretend there's water in there. And pretend that you have this huge ocean, like the big ocean that you have. And if you have these cups and you take a cup of water and you put it into the ocean, and you have now a cup of water, but where did that cup of water come from? It came from the ocean. And if you pour the cup of water back into the ocean, I'm so butchering this, but it really painted a picture where light, you can have a source and draw from that and be able to create other things. And so when you really understand that everything is energy, it becomes a lot more easier to explain how you can have one source and why everyone seems to be in a better agreement, because it seems a lot easier to, when you consider things of light, of energy, when you look at it that way, it's a lot easier to realize that can separate. And then once it separates, it can be put back together. I am butchering this so badly, but you get the idea, and I think that becomes easier. But when we think but I think we attribute God to a person, because that's what our mental programs is like. Because you can't really take a picture of energy; it will confuse people, and I think it throws them off. So we pretend God's a person, and I think that does it. But when you really think of everything as energy, because that's what we are energy. It becomes a little easier to then have that concept of having a source and having one, like a fragment of light that then splits. We have the sun, and then it splits and can turn into light in different places, things of that nature.
Well,
So go ahead.
oh no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me, that's exactly what it was like. So I had this teaching that God was this entity, and that and then I would hear other people in other religions say, well, God is everywhere and in everything. And I'm like, what? I just didn't get it. And I was like so confused, exactly what you just said. But then when you do start thinking about this energy, or this consciousness field, this huge thing out there, that it is the energy is all connected, right? Everything is connected, and so we're part of that energy, and that just makes more sense to me by calling it energy than anything else. But I do use the word source and consciousness, and then I also, like this last Sunday, went to the Center for Spiritual Living, and he called it God. But then he said, and after he started talking, then he said, well, there is, some people call it source, some people call it consciousness, like whatever you want to call it. I just call it God because it's just easier for me to call it God while I'm standing here. And I was really glad that he said that, because it does confuse people. But I think also too, the more people talk about it and have the awareness of all of this put together, it helps us to balance those words, not to be triggered by them as much or at all, and to help others to also come out of that programming or that teaching, that belief system that we've had, most of our lives.
Yes. I mean, and then so we get birthed into a family, and they usually have their belief system. And then that belief system gets put on that baby, that upbringing, generally, statistically very common. And then that's literally like a computer program. Here's your software system, and this is your belief system. And then they say up until 7 years old is when you're the most susceptible to your environment and building those foundational blocks. And so then you get this, oftentimes in our history, at least, it's a religious program. And so then that's what it really is. And then some of us, just start to go, this doesn't really feel right to me, and I want to know what else is out there. And so that's what happened to me. And I started what I call a spiritual quest. And I'm like, what does this mean? Because this one thing just feels like this, and I know there's a lot more. So I started looking. And then, one of the best explanations for me came from my main mentor, Matthias DeStefano, in his it's on Gaia. It's a streaming service that he calls it initiation. And what he described is he started to describe the dimensions, and he started with the one. It all started with the one. And so you often hear we are one, we are one. And that's why, a lot of religions say the Holy Ghost, it can be with you, let the spirit be with you, that kind of thing. And now that I understand better what he was saying, how he described the first dimension is the one, and that is the source. And then it became aware of itself, and it realized, what else can I become? And so that created the duality, the second. And so then it became, what else can I become? And that resonates for me. And I won't go into the rest of them because it's, we're just talking right now about God. To me is the one, that one essence, that one energy, that one spirit that we all have, that's beating our hearts, that's creating the things that we can't explain, the creation and the heartbeat and the breath that's automatic. And you can't, rebuild a body after it's dead. You can't just put it back together like in mechanics. It's a spiritual experience of something that's keeping it going. And so I resonate with the fact that I'm always feeling like, what else can I become? And so I see myself, and then I'm aware of the fact that I'm always striving to become something more. And so that's what I see God, and that one always becoming more. And then we branched into all the versions of itself becoming more and expanding. And to me, that is what eternity is. It's the one becoming, going through unique experiences to expand the infinite eternally. Because if it was always the same, how could it expand and continue? And so it's because we go through the veil and forget all that we know, so that we can have more unique things. And the more unique decisions, choices, thoughts, experiences, then that creates expansion. And so that's how I see God and spirit and energy and essence and expansion and infinity and eternity. And then what I see as the universe is the entireness of it all. And so it's everything that everyone has ever thought, said, or done that's created this massive energetic field that we can use to create with, because we're all connected to it. So then the universe to me is the field that we can pull energy from to create in the physical and to manifest with. And to me, so if I had to explain that with God essence, God uses the universe to coordinate what's available within the entireness of everything that's ever been, currently is, or ever will be it our thoughts, our goals, our dreams, our desires. It's all energy. It's all out there. And so that's why you'll find somebody, like I've had this happen to me many times, where I have a thought and it's such a great thought or an idea. And the next thing I know, a few years later, or not even sometimes that long, somebody else did it. And I'm like, that was my idea. I'm like, wait a minute. And then I'm thinking, oh, right, it's in the field, and whoever tunes into it gets it. And so it's no longer this, it's mine. It's all there. We're all able to tune in, tap in, and turn on to whatever it is that we want to think about and talk about and create. That is the energy, essence, and spirit for me in a nutshell.
Yeah, and for example, what you were talking about, where whoever's pulling it out, right? Whoever's tuning in and connecting to that thought or idea or creative project has happened. We know this if we go back and look at some of the different inventors. There's one in one part of the world and another guy in another part of the world, and they're both inventing the same thing at the same time, but in different parts of the world. And they're both, being in tune and connecting to whatever that creative thought is, and then they make it their own, but yet it's at the same time. And so it's not just one person who gets that one thought, it's whoever tunes into the thought that's already there. So
Yeah.
that's very good.
Yeah.
Also too, I was thinking about the word all one. So I remember when someone said to me, I'm alone. And someone said, oh, that means all one. Alone is all one. And that's where the connectivity is, where we're all connected to this energy, right? And so that's a whole like other big subject, but if anybody else wants to mention anything, go for it.
Well, on the note of what I was just saying regarding this, the source, and then where our version of that, you know, we became, what else can source become? Well, that's what, to me, all of our personalities and our little human experiences are. And so when I think of the one, it's that one essence and energy source, and then we are unique perspectives of that. And so then I actually, what came to me and downloaded through me that maybe other people have also said is me, myself, and I am. And that's my personal trinity, which is me in my avatar experience, having this personality and this experience on earth. And then I've got my true self that is the me that I'm creating however many times, you know, however that works beyond what I can understand in this limited mind's ability, brain ability, with the forgetfulness and whatnot. But I feel that there's a bigger part of me that it continues, you know, like that there's a continuation after death, and that it maybe has even continued multiple times. And so that's my true self that's constantly expanding eternally. And then the I am is the one that we are just all from. And so that's why I call it me, myself, and I am, is because it's, to me, that is what makes sense for me. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I've heard others refer to that, like the I am, as the, you know, God I am. And so, you know, some people may get into their ego about that and how they perceive that statement. But if we all are connected and we all have that same energy spark within us, then the statement is true, God I am. And so then that goes over into sovereignty, how each of us we're each sovereign, an individual sovereign person. But we also, one of the things that Nikki, part of our harvesting light group, has said is that it's, how does she say it? Sovereignty, unity, I think.
Sovereign unity.
Yeah, sovereign unity, that's it. And really, you know, just thinking about that, it's kind of beautiful just to know that we're all connected. We all have that God spark. We're all divine, and we're all part of that word, God. Okay, you want to talk about another word?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Okay, how about prayer? That's another religious word, but for some people, prayer might they might be triggered by that word. And for me, at first, I was, because I associated it with a religion, you know, with organized religion. And so, what is prayer? So, prayer is intention. It can be an invocation. It can be an affirmation. It can be just our words, our voice, an action. And so I just kind of wanted to hear if anybody has anything to say about that word, prayer.
Yeah, I think that one is a great one to use. And I think one of the things why that could be a triggering word for people is because they get taught this process that they get on their knees, they do this action, and they say the things that they would like God to do, or anything, whatever those things are. And that's what they attribute to prayer. And then things don't happen the way they want, and then they just think prayer doesn't work. It's a trigger word. It's obviously not something that is very helpful to them. And I think one of the reasons, as you kind of mentioned it, is because once again, it's one of those where we are energy. And if you realize that we are energy and we are creators, we are praying all the time, not just when we are on our knees. It's not, it's one of the, I think one of the reasons is because they think that they're just asking God for things at that moment, when really we're asking for God, source, universe, consciousness. We're asking for things all the time. Maybe we're more focused when we do that with people. Maybe there's a heavier intention there. Who knows? But we're asking all the time for the things that it is that for things that we want. And so really if we look at prayer, we are 24/7 or whatever our awake time is praying.
And possibly even when we sleep. And if you think of the word, that kind of is in the same vibration as invocation, right? Prayer, invocation. And I'm glad you brought this up because when you, like, we actually were having a kind of a little bit of a conversation before it started recording about what you think about and what you feel is you're transmitting and receiving all the time. And so when you get on your knees, or when you just, set an intention of focus to God, or however that belief system works, if you believe and you have faith and that's why there's miracles, and that's why people believe in prayer, is because they're like, no, I pray and it works. And there's other people that are like, I pray and I don't hear anything. I don't get it. And so to me, it's because it's what are you transmitting and receiving? So if you are always praying with, I'm sad, I'm miserable, please help me, I'm scared, I need help. To me, you're transmitting all those frequencies that match that feeling of desperation, fear, anxiety. So you might actually get more of that back. But when you really start going through the spiritual journey of gratitude, you want gratitude and to be thankful. They always tell us to be thankful, to go through when you're praying, to say everything that you're grateful for and what you're, thank you, God, for this. Thank you so much for that. And the more you do that, that's what you start getting more of. And so it's really, to me, prayer and invocation is, what are you invoking? But that's just a thought. So I'm glad you brought that up because I've never thought about it.
Well, I'm glad that you shared that with us. Yeah, I totally resonate with what you just said, for sure. And, I think, one of the things that maybe we should talk about, since we talked about God and prayer, is, when that triggers someone. So why are we getting triggered? Because we have the lack of knowledge, maybe, and we don't know what the more expanded perceptions are with this one word. And as we talk about it, maybe this is going to help someone else to understand, oh, that's what is meant by that, or maybe that resonates with me, and that's how I perceive it now. And but I lost my train of thought. But anyway, so I think that that no matter what, even if we are in awareness and we know that we have like our own perception of what the universe is, or what consciousness is, and if we get triggered by the word God, then maybe we're in resistance to expanding our own knowledge or understanding of what it is, in the bigger picture of things. Maybe it's just that lack of knowledge. Maybe it is, something else. I don't know. But one of the things that I do know is that, to go into judgment on a word or a label, is also something that we need to look within and say, you know, why am I being triggered by that, or why does that not work for me, or why am I not resonating with that? And then as you dig and figure out what is being said, or what the word that's being used is maybe different from you, you know, how you're perceiving that word could be maybe be perceived in another way. And so maybe keeping the open mind, the open heart, and by having this conversation, I think that's also what we're doing, is learning what it means to each of us, or what our own perception is of it, or our opinion, or whatever, and then making it our own. And so no one's wrong or right. It's just a matter of how you perceive it. And so then there's no judgment in how you feel about a word or a label, but it's just how you perceive it. And each individual person's perception is okay. And so not to have judgment on anyone else and how they feel about the word. And if they still don't want to use that word, that's okay too. But when they hear it from another person, maybe this will help them think about, oh, they're using that word, but for me, I don't use that word, but yet I know what they mean. And because that's their perception and the word that they prefer to use, and that's okay.
Yes, and that releases judgment. And, you know, that's scriptural, you know, in all religions that I have found on my spiritual quest is releasing judgment. And so when you become the observer and you recognize, ooh, that didn't resonate, or that didn't feel right, it's okay. You know, at least you're seeking to understand before you're seeking to be understood. And so you're just allowing a grace, you know, that's what resonates for them. Awesome. And then, you know, the people who I'm finding more and more, that the people who are resonating with this religion or this belief system, or the no belief system, and just openness to all conversations and perspectives and interesting thoughts, you know, it's a beautiful thing to see, because it's nice to have that support in whatever resonates for you. And so then you can just kind of observe in a fun way, like, wow, that's cool. I'm glad that resonates for you. This is what resonates for me, and we don't have to be the same. And then you just have that freedom of, you know, you're no longer in judgment.
Right.
Yeah,
I
I
have
was
to
going
agree
to
with.
talk to.
Go ahead,
Go
Chris.
ahead, Michelle. Go ahead.
I kind of lost my train of thought. Go ahead, Chris. I'll
Oh.
regain it. It's okay.
Okay. I was going to go back on to prayer real quick. Just that everybody's different interpretation, but sometimes collectively as a group, like on prayer, when I drum, that is almost like a prayer. And, you know, I'm asking for release, or for, basically it's just for connection. That's my main thing. And Monday night was amazing. Sherry will tell you how amazing it was. We were all connected at the same time, and that was what was coming through. I had an interpretation, she had an interpretation, and it was both the same for part of it. And then at the end, when the female voices started coming through, that was the end of my perception of it. But when you use big words like prayer, everybody has their own version. Everybody has their own collective portion of it. But it is so beautiful to have things like this that we can use and that we can tap into and just get that connection, that heart soul connection. And if people can get past their hurdles, or their whatever they're struggling with, and look at the truth of it, just like drumming breaks it down into a basic, my drum prayer, my spirit the journey it takes me on and the connection that I have. It's just so beautiful. And we just have to remember that these words are here to connect us and connect us with universe and connect us with source and each other. And it's just, once you see past all the BS, it
Belief
really
system.
is so beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. It's so beautiful. You know, I look at the progress that people have made in my life, you know, that have helped me progress and help me connect with my own. And it's really, these
Beautiful.
words I've received are amazing. Yeah.
I love that.
It reminds me of being taught about a shaman's prayer. And so when I was at the gathering of the shamans, that really stuck very well with me, is the shaman's prayer. And a shaman's prayer is everything that you say, you do, you think, you act upon. It is your whole life and everything that you are doing ongoing. That's the shaman's prayer. It's a way of life. So prayer can have so many different meanings. But for me, that was truly beautiful. And the drumming also, Chris, anytime we go in, that I go into a drum circle like that, it's amazing. And last night I was called to do more of a Native American dance in that drum circle. And I know that you were all, the ones that were there, were very much in tune to what they were doing. I was in tune to what I was doing. But it just felt right to me. And then when the Ombros showed up, it was just like, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. And I thought, is Chris doing that, you know? And I'm looking at him, looking at his lips, and it wasn't him. And then I looked at the person that was sitting in front of me getting drummed, and it wasn't her. And I'm looking at everybody else, and it wasn't. It was just happening. It was just within the field, and it was just as plain as I am right now.
Oh,
And then Chris, when I talked to you last night about it, you made the sound, almost the exact same sound that they did in that drum circle. And can you please show us an example of what that sounded like?
Oh, the Gregorian chant, the something like that.
Yeah, it was very close to that. Yes. And then when that ended, or it was almost a blend, right as that was like coming to a conclusion, then it was like these Celtic feminine goddesses came in, and they started singing in a language I've never heard before. And it was just angelic. It was so beautiful. And it was like this chorus going on in the background as we're drumming around this lady, and it just flowed so well. And it was amazing. I it really brings me to tears when I think about it again, because it was just so beautiful.
Yeah,
But
my
in a sense,
Claire
yeah,
audio shut off right there where they
yeah,
began. I wasn't in that same vibration, for lack of anything, or I couldn't perceive that part of it, but I perceived the lower end of it.
Yeah, you heard the Ombros. And
Yes.
I was there and I could feel the energy of the spiritual connection with the ancestors or whoever it was that showed up. I felt them, but I couldn't hear them. And so when you said that you heard them, I thought I felt them. And so it was just fun to kind of get what you heard or felt, and then what are your experiences, and to see that you two had the same. And I thought that was awesome. And then to know that I was feeling it was just really powerful.
It was
and
very
I really,
connected.
it was very connecting, and it really was a form of prayer.
Mhm.
And there's all these different modalities or things that you can do to connect, and they can all be considered a form of prayer, not necessarily with your hands and eyes closed or on your knees, but it can be that too, right? It's that focus,
Yeah.
that intention, that connectedness, and then also too, just coming together as a group is just so much powerful.
Yeah, they
It
say when
was
a group comes together, it magnifies. That's why they have proven that when a whole group gets together and meditates on one specific topic, like they've done the experiments and intention experiments to see, and they have reduced crime. That was, where they actually have before and after that massive group of people did a specific meditation. And so you can find these statistics. It's really cool. And just one more thing on that note of prayer. And I liked, sometimes I think that when they have us close our eyes and do something with our hands, I think you said it's to help you focus, to get you to let go of what's distracting you, to be able to get your connection clear. So I think to me, it's a focus technique. And then one thing too about prayer that I was thinking is that, oh my gosh, I just totally derailed because I went into the thoughts of connecting with closing your eyes and getting focused. It'll come back to me. It's when it's meant to.
And so we talked a little bit about the intention behind it. And so one of the things that was said last week, we didn't record last week when we were all discussing all of it. And I believe it was Travis that mentioned that how important intention is. It lifts each other up when we have that divine intention, whatever it is that we're bringing forth. It can inspire, it creates, it can empower others, and it can also disempower others, is what he said. And so, prayer is powerful, and we don't have to use that word if we don't want to. That's okay. It's just our perception or the word that we use for whatever the intention is that we're trying to bring forth. And so it can be in many, many forms.
I love that. Thank you. And I just remembered. So, and prayer can mean what, like to Chris, two ravens, I call him, is connection, right? That's your way to connect. So however that is for you, that you can connect. But I've also heard, and you guys can decide whether or not this resonates, but I've heard another concept that's pretty standard amongst all religions and spiritual, like Native Americans and whatnot, is to remember to ask. So any of our spirit guides or ancestors or any, even our higher self or God, that we are here with free will. And so we need to ask. So that's why scripturally it says, ask and it is given, or knock and it shall be opened up unto you. Those are just a few, but it's a common theme. And so one of the things that prayer can do, and this is just two things that I've heard that may or may not resonate for you guys, but prayer is the way to connect. And it can help you just process what you're going through, gives you an avenue to connect and speak out loud what you're going through. You can use it to process it out loud, but then ask for assistance, and then send gratitude for what you are being blessed with and what things are working for you, and try to put more of those in, just based off what we talked about before. You want a majority of thankfulness and gratitude, so you get more of those, and speak from your heart. And then I heard that, the meditation is the way for God to connect back to you. So prayer is like you sending it out, and meditation, and why it helps to get quiet and just go into stillness, is that's your way for God to bring it back. So prayer is like sending it out, and meditation is bringing it back in. And so that was just another thought that I've heard.
I like that very much. Okay, any other words that we want to discuss? One of the words that came into me this morning was empowering. The word empowering. And I don't know why that came through, but it did. And the message that I was getting is that when you have confidence, that's what empowers you. And so that's a good thing. We don't need to think of it as being a bad thing. It is a good thing to be empowered. And I looked up the word, and basically what the dictionary was saying is that it's to when you give power to someone else. And that's not what it means. To be empowered is you giving yourself the confidence. When you gain your own confidence, that's what will empower you. And that was the message that I got. So if anybody has anything to say about that word, I would love to hear it, because that was pretty clear this morning. Maybe just in the way we live our life, maybe the things that we're going through, maybe the decisions that we're getting ready to make. We can have sometimes self-doubt, but it's that confidence that will empower us to move forward. Okay, someone else brought up a word when I was talking to them earlier off camera, and they mentioned the word light worker was kind of a triggering word for them. And so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because, what is a light worker, right? Someone that is holding space with good intention. Someone that is bringing forth their truth with their voice. Someone that is in a drum circle, connecting and bringing up that vibration and expanding it into the earth. It can mean a lot of different things. So why would it be a trigger word? Because there's a lot of different people out there that are calling themselves light workers that maybe don't resonate with what your perception is or how things should be. So I think it just is something to consider as far as looking within and why that word or that label is triggering. And I think that the reason it is because not everything is resonating with you, or or some people that are calling themselves that label are not resonating with you, but that's okay. That's okay that they don't. And then you just thank them for making you aware that that's not what your perception is going to be, and just be done with that and then move on. And what does resonate, let that come in and embrace, but without judgment again, right? And so that's where the labeling comes into play. Definition and labeling, that was part of the subtitles that I had talked about in the very beginning. And so when these things come up, I would just suggest to look within to see where that's coming from. And when you realize that you're in resistance to that resonance because it just isn't for you, and that's okay. Give it gratitude for allowing you to figure out what does resonate with you so that you can move forward and with what does.
So I think the word light worker, like, it used to bother me because I was more comfortable sitting in darkness, right? And so when my transformation started happening, and I started looking my inner self, like, why am I comfortable sitting in darkness or self-pity or anger? It was a form of protection. For me, it was protection. But when I started opening my heart, I wanted to go back to the word, for me, it's about trust. Who can I trust in my life? Right. So being a light worker, like, I've learned to be more edifying to others or uplifting, like having a more understanding of people's choices, whether or not I agree nor disagree. So that used to be a trigger word for me, light worker, because they were happy and I was not. And then I would feel jealousy or envy, or, well, why am I not feeling happy? And I still have those things, but I'm reading a book right now called Emotional Intelligence, and like the first sign of emotional intelligence, it says in this book, is self-awareness, right? So I'm becoming more self-aware of, all my life I've kind of had this fear because of trust, and I didn't even trust God because I had to live on my own willpower, and or I thought I had to live on my own willpower, right? And then things that I prayed for wouldn't come, or but and then the word patience, you know, being impatient. So having that self-awareness of my defects, and you know, that I can't fix, manage, control other people. But yeah, so light worker, I can see where other people like Lorena was sharing, like our gratitude list. Like I my heart and my head are not aligned right now. Like I have so much to be grateful for and thankful for. And it's coming in alignment, but I'm impatient. So the word light worker used to really bother me, and I didn't understand it. But then sometimes though, I have to go with my intuitive side, because people can say they're light workers, um, and they can be wolves in sheep's clothing, right? Scripture talks about that discernment and things like that. So, you know I have a lot of gifts. I don't have a lot of trust that I'm able to use them, but I'm getting there. And so the word light worker, or like seeing somebody happy all the time, even in the midst of turmoil, like I would look at him and I'd go, how do you do that? Like, how? I want to know the secret. Give me the happy pill, dang it. It just wasn't coming, man. It still sometimes doesn't. But like, I got through it today, and I didn't have to take a drug or a drink over it. And, and I gave back, and that was like a little happy pill. And I don't share that to boast. I share that because I'm like, oh, there's a key to this. Like, that's one of the keys. I need to get out of self. And so being a light worker to me is not so triggering anymore. I need to find the keys to getting out of self and having trust in my God or higher power or evidence, he, she, it doesn't matter. Like, I just have to trust that, even scripture. I don't like to go back to scripture, but I was raised on scripture, it says I have a purpose and a plan for you. And I'm like, well, what is that effing purpose? Just tell me it, man. Just put it on a silver platter for me. It doesn't happen that way. I have to go walk through, that stuff. So I'm grateful that I've met you guys. You guys are all light workers in my life, and I'm learning to trust. There's been times where I'm like, I don't know if because I'm fear-based. And that's just because somebody's talking about energy. There's positive and negative energy, and most of my life I've lived in negative energy, and I've got to reprogram into that positive energy. I'm so bummed I missed out last night, but like I was telling Chris, like something bad always happened after drumming every week, and I was like, I'm not going back. And now you guys are telling me this beautiful story, and I'm like, dang it, I should have went back. But there's always another time. I'm grateful for you guys. Thank you for this conversation, for all of you participating. I'm learning so much.
We're grateful for you, Michelle. We really are. Thank you for sharing your truth right then. That was beautiful. And I'm so glad that you said what you said, because I know that there are people out there that needed to hear your exact words. You were meant to be here for us and for them. So thank you for that. I'm glad that you brought up the word fear too, because even the jealousy and the envy and, you know, all those things, we're humans. We're still humans. We still have those emotions within us. And so, and that's okay to have those emotions. But as you become more aware, like you said, Michelle, you're learning to work through that and to find your happiness. And that's beautiful. That is so, so beautiful. And we are so grateful that you're here with us and that you're part of our group. So.
Yes. And I would like to just express, with Lightworker for the last 20 years, I've gone through many different thoughts and beliefs and connections and disconnections with that word. So that's another good word. Thank you. Because at first, you know, it reminds me of social media. Okay, so you see everybody's best foot forward. You see their happy face mask all the time. And then you think, cow, if I become a light worker, do I get to have that? And then you go on this journey to becoming your best self, and you focus on the good and you focus on all that, and then you get all this crap that happens, and you're like, you go through the dark night of the soul over and over again, and then it creates that jealousy and envy that you're not able to maintain that light working energy. And so I mean, I had to really get to a point where, for me now, a light worker is someone who's been through hell and back. And they can now say, you know what, I understand. I've been there. I've been through the dark night of the soul. And no light worker out there from my perspective is always happy or is always in their light. They have shit storms that come up and they're like, oh my gosh, you know, I don't know how I'm gonna, you know, they also go through those human experiences of fear, doubt, you know, overwhelm or stress or anxiety. But then they just start plugging in all those tools, you know, they're like, oh, okay, you know, I remember somebody said this, that, you know, and that just kind of switches your thought. And the more often you do that, that's why it's called work. You know, so you're working towards having more energy that's of that light than of that dark. But we are always going to have that shadow side. We're always going to have that little bit of darkness because we're in duality. And so to me, a light worker now represents someone who sees both in everyone, including themselves. And then they just have been on a journey of gathering as many tools that help themselves and others. And that, to me, a light worker is someone who their intention is to assist others. Like you said earlier, you know, you went out and you did something for someone else that helped you feel better. And to me, that's all it comes down to, is what is it that I can do that helps me feel better, but also contributes to, you know, helping someone else feel good. That is a true light worker to me, and that they can acknowledge and say, I know it sucks to feel that anxiety. I've been there just yesterday, but you know, they're just genuine, they're honest, they're not perfect, they're not always happy, but they try to always move into the tools they've learned. And that's why, you know, to me, that's what it represents now.
Oh, that was great. Yeah, that I totally resonate with both of what you said, for sure. And so, yeah, and I think, you know, when Michelle said, you know, she's working on herself, I think that was the word that really stood out to me, is that as we do work on ourselves, so don't look at anybody else and see what they're doing or what they're putting on social media and how good and great and light they are all the time. And, you know, because it is exactly what both of you said. We're still on the 3D at this point, and there is going to be that those ups and downs. And that is also what a light worker is, someone that works on their self so that they can help others. But you can't help others until you help yourself. So self first and then others. And that's not selfish.
And then just like Stephanie, just to see her respond to our just that connection we had, and it just came from just one simple thing, and then it came from her friend to her, and then all of a sudden it was like She was one of us.
Yeah,
expand
you're
on that a
referring
little. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I was just going to ask Chris if he could expand on that a little bit so that everyone knows what you're
right.
talking.
The dinner or the breakfast that we went to, and that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, just when she came into her light and she realized that she wasn't crazy, and these things that she'd been experiencing, that there were others there and we were all one together, especially you, Lorena. When
She
you
came
two
up to
connected,
us,
and I just,
yeah.
yeah,
She
when
was
you two
going through
connected,
well, and the interesting thing is, so we went to breakfast after we all got together at the Harvesting Light Sunday. We just kind of a few of us got together afterward and went to breakfast, and the host of the restaurant, she's the cutest thing. She's just adorable. She has the smile on her face. She just represented joy. But then her friend was wearing a necklace that had a symbol of sacred geometry. And then that got Chris to say, hey, that's a symbol of sacred geometry. You're going to be getting some light activation. And she's like, oh, really? And then all of a sudden that sparked this energy in the whole restaurant. And the next thing we know, I guess she went over to the hostess, and then she came up to our group and she said, I've been looking and praying. You guys, I prayed for someone to come in today. I was praying because I feel like I'm going crazy. She's going through a dark night of the soul, and she just wanted to find people that was like-minded. And we're like, oh, right here, we got you. Like, we understand, that when you're going through that dark night of the soul, that the miracles will show up. The right person, when the student is ready, the teacher appears if you're open. And then it just happens to be from a conversation that Chris, you had with her friend, that sparked this, oh, they might be like-minded. I'm going to go over there because I'm hurting today. And she came over and she was open and she said, this is how I think. And it was very similar to the verbiage and the words that we use. And we were like, oh, well, guess what? We're like-minded like you. And she's like, really? Oh my gosh, I've been praying for you and I really need this in my life. And so we welcomed her in. And sometimes that's all it takes, is just that, to me, is representing the light, and just welcoming those who are seeking.
she came right into the light.
And so sometimes being a light worker is just being, right? Just being who your authentic divine self that you are. That can just also just be the light worker. And it can attract these people that are looking for others that are like-minded, just like you said, Lorena.
And sometimes it's through the darkness, to be honest. I mean, you might be going through a dark night of the soul and someone else is resonating in that same situation of something that's going through something heavy, and then together you meet up because you're attracting, like attracts like, and then all of a sudden, you'll say something that was a tool that somebody said that you're like, this really helped me, and then like, that's exactly what I needed to hear today, and then that spirals you up. And then so sometimes light working is going through the shadows together and then moving back up.
So welcome, Nikki. Are you still driving? Drive careful. You don't have to answer. Oh, there she is.
Hi guys. I just stopped to fill up my water, so it was actually perfect divine timing because I've been listening to you guys while I was driving. Let me hop in my car so I can at least talk to you for 5 minutes before I have to turn the mic off again.
Are you feeling
But
better?
Yes, physically I'm feeling better. My allergies are still kind of the same. I have these sneezing attacks, but energy is returning. So thank you for asking. So I love the conversation, and I just tuned in about, I don't know how far through Michelle's, but I caught the end of that. And then your guys' responses, I'm just so, I love it. I love it because this is the true ascension, is understanding that it's the light and the dark that come together in order for us to be able to understand. And it's that awareness that brings this understanding that, you know what, just being good all the time is not really why I'm here. There has to be this balance to the duality, the good, the bad. Now, as we step out of the duality, then we get to go into this new 5D and we get to experience these magical moments like a new friend coming today. Oh my goodness. I love that story of the cafe this or Sunday morning. Oh, you guys are awesome. Like, I'm just so thankful, because that's to me what life is all about now. It's carrying this understanding that inclusiveness is truth. So when you're including others, you know, you're living in truth, and more than being a light worker, be a truth seeker, or a truth sharer, or a truth amplifier, because I think that right now, the people that, like the one that you attracted in the cafe on Sunday, those people that are alone, like you guys, why we've all been on that path of being alone at some point. I'm so thankful it's been over 3 years now since I've been alone. But when you find people that are like-minded, and when you find people that are using these words and this verbiage, you know that that is stepping into the 5D. So it's like, remember this, we're in a physical 3-dimensional plane, but we are 5-dimensional beings, and we have the power to vibe up into that vibration at almost any time. And it's carrying this, like Lorena said, I think in her comments, that it's learning to be in the flow of the light and the dark. So you have the awareness of both, and you truly get to accept both. There's no more saying that bad is wrong or that bad even exists. It's everything is an experience. What do I observe about myself and my awareness? And then that feeling when you have so much love for who you are, that it just amplifies, and people around you, they're like, I want to love myself like that. And love is my superpower. This is why I exist. This is my favorite shirt. I take very good care of it so it doesn't get ruined. But I love you guys, and thank you, Sherry, so much for hosting this. I can't wait for someone to catch me up on the first hour that I missed. But yeah, thank you,
Nikki,
thank you.
thank you for popping on with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a fabulous little over an hour, and it's just I have it recorded, so you'll be able to see it. I'll send you the link once I get it uploaded. And I don't know if there's anything anybody else wants to say, or if we should just end it here.
Hey, Nikki, I was
Yes.
going to introduce you to Bonnie.
Oh, yes.
Bonnie, this is Nikki. This is my
Hi,
Bonnie.
Hi,
Nikki.
Bonnie. I don't know how to see Bonnie. Oh, I learned how. I swiped right and I could see everyone.
Oh,
Hi,
good.
Bonnie Royce.
Hi, Nikki.
I had a grandpa Royce. He passed away, but he lived out in Louisiana, I think. So I don't know.
Oh, and his
Nice to
last
meet
name was Royce.
Yeah.
Oh,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
Nikki,
Super
one
cool.
more.
what a great shirt you have. Wow, I love, love, love that shirt.
I love the company just as much because the company is called Spiritual Gangster.
Oh, nice. See, there's the duality right there.
Yep.
You can be both, and you can, you know, when you really just start to learn to love yourself, you actually embrace the experiences that feel like the shadow side of you, or the dark side of the experiences of this journey, and then you just look at it from an observational point of view, where you're like, sometimes it's not easy, especially when you're in the thick of it. But once you kind of branch back out and you rise back up and you look at it and you observe it, now it becomes, wow, that was a crazy experience. I prefer not to do that again. And that is progress. And I think
Yeah.
that is what we're seeking, is just becoming better and better versions of what feels good in ourselves and loving ourselves, and then being able to share that and amplify that in others. And that's when you start to develop and come together in your tribe, you know, your people that resonate.
Hey, one more thing, Nikki. One more thing. Just tell my own bro, Travis. Tell him his little think small, stop thinking small. That spilled over onto me, and I spilled it all over Sherry, and she's got big things coming. So,
yay!
Yeah,
tell him
that
I
was
love
a
him.
powerful thing that he told us. No more playing small. I love that.
No more small.
It's
Yes.
time.
Thank you. I will let him know that as Lorena was talking, I just had to decline his call. He was just calling right now. So I will call him back and let him know. And thank you so much, because I knew since I met Travis, like I know we went into that a lot more personal last week, but I had these visions of us teaching together, doing ceremony together, holding this space together in this way that I couldn't let go of. And for him to speak last week and to share his heart and to get more into that, it's like it really is like a dream come true for me, because I just heard a little bit of the light worker conversation, but we are all some sort of spiritual gangster in our own way, and we're ready to take the streets, shoulder to shoulder, and Care Bear stare the entire world and be like, what? Light is going to expand you to your greatest possibility, and if you don't want the light, the darkness will always be over there waiting for you. But it's presenting it to people. Sometimes people have just forgotten that happiness and joy is even part of life. Like, we were brought into this world to believe in fear, pain, shame, guilt, and we're literally raised in the lower vibration. So from the time we're born, we're digging ourselves out of a hole. And when people find you, they're looking up out of that hole and they're like, there's the light. And guess what? Like, your light might be this dim little tiny flashlight. Cause like when I first woke up, I would be like, no, I really don't know anything. My light is just blooming now. So I'm not a light worker. And then the more I learned about myself, it's like, oh, I've been this person for a very long time. It didn't just happen 2 years ago. We talk about these wake up stories, and they're just remembrance of who we are. So Travis is remembering what, Chris?
Back in the three key element days.
Yeah, Kirk and Kim.
Well, and the more darkness that you've experienced and acknowledge and you embrace, that gives you more to relate to anybody who's going through it. And to, if you've gone through something similar, you now have the ability to be like, I hear you, I've been there, I've done that, and you can embrace it with them. But then you can also share with them, hey, this is what tool I use, or this is what I found that works for me. And then that is just giving that loving essence.
Yeah. Yep. I love how you brought up the tools, because that really is, I mean, in shamans, of course, I know some of you have practiced shamanism and looked into what a shaman is. And really, a shaman is a human with a really big tool bag that they understand how everything works around them. So no matter what environment that they are in, they have a tool to enhance that environment to a healthy status. And so I think in every way, we're all becoming our own little shaman, light workers, spiritual gangster, healer, warriors, and we're learning to take on all of our past lives, right? And become this new person that we've never seen. Like, I may have been all those other people, but whoa, who am I now in this time? And so these conversations, I'm so glad you're recording this, Sherry. This is going to be amazing. This is just, I feel it. I love it. I love jumping into just hearing you guys talk about these things and your responses. I mean, it's like, it's real life.
Oh, thank you, Nikki. Yeah, I'm super excited to continue on with it. And really, like I said in the beginning, that it's not just me talking or facilitating, it's a conversation for all of us. And it's to help us grow, heal, speak our truth, feel that we're safe in doing that. And then also by recording it, we're helping others. And so if they resonate with what we're talking about and what we're saying, then so be it.
Right. Yes. And so it is. 1, 2, 3.
So it is.
So it is.
So it is. Well, and I'm glad you brought up the like past life thing, just because for me, I feel like just with my journey of going through several dark nights of my soul, which is why I relate to so many people and can plug in tools for them that I've used for 20 years now, is because I've been through many versions of life, literally different me's, so even though I've had probably several past lives, but I've had several lives just in this life. And when you observe
Right.
yourself and you say, you know what, that was a version of me, I've grown since then. So you can, you don't have to be that person anymore that you don't want to be, but you can acknowledge that person and say, you know what, that was a version of me. I'm so thankful for that part of my chapters, my book, that chapter was helped me as a stepping stool. And if you just, one simple tool is, instead of using it as a stumbling block that stops because you went through something so harsh or something so negative, it really can stumble you and it can trigger you and make you fumble. But if you look at it and you're like, man, that gave me some strength and I was able to learn a tool that I could plug in. So if that triggers me again, instead of stumbling, I'm going to step up. And so sometimes just that kind of simple recognition of those versions of what I went through were parts of me that needed to go, that went through whatever it was, how hard it was, or how dark it was, or whatever it was, that now gives you something to relate to someone else who might be going through something similar or even vibrationally similar, that you can say, hey, you know what, if they come into your path, you can embrace that and say, I understand. And that gives them something really solid to hold on to and recognize that, oh my gosh, she did it. She can use that as a tool. Whatever got her to be able to use it as a tool, maybe I can use that. So that is beautiful.
Yes, gifting gifts, regifting. That is totally good regifting, right?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, Lorena. Well, guys, I gotta jump off and fill up my water, and I have Travis's dinner in the car over there. So
Okay, you let him know we said hello.
Yes.
We missed it
I
tonight.
will.
We'll see
Thank
him
you,
another
guys.
time though. Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for joining, Nikki. We'll talk to
Love
you
you,
later.
Nikki. You're welcome. Love you too. Love you guys.
Love you
Okay,
guys.
bye.
Love you, Nikki.
Bye.
Bye.
Is there any other conversation, words, anything else that you want to comment on that's maybe already been discussed or something that we haven't touched upon? Because we can keep going if you want.
Can I invite Chris? And I'm putting you on the spot, Chris. My Chris Allison. Okay, now that we have two Chris's for sure in the group. When I first met Chris Two Ravens, he introduced himself as Chris Two Ravens because whenever he goes into the canyon and does his drumming, Two Ravens always shows up. So because of my very first introduction to him, he said, I'm Two Ravens. Now that's forever Two Ravens. So Chris, I want to invite you to maybe, because it's really a core foundation in some of the training that he and I do on the history, origin, and meaning of words, and activating and illuminating the words so that you actually really know what they mean and how that can benefit you when you're in essence casting spells or spelling. That's what words are. So they all have energy, frequency, and vibration behind them and momentum behind them. And sometimes the history of the word is something that was negative versus something that's positive today, or something that's negative today might have been positive back when. And that's where intention comes in, and the intention behind the word that you give has meaning and merit. However, just sometimes knowing that word had a negative meaning in the past, maybe it had more emphasis and momentum with the negative energy of it. So now that you understand that it may have had a negative background, you might choose a different word when you realize what words I speak have energy and vibration in it and create. That's why they say abracadabra. It's you're spelling, you're casting a spell with your words. And so, Chris, do you have anything to add on that from our training?
Yeah, so I think it definitely goes into a little bit. We talk about trigger words and how it triggers people. And I kind of like how what Travis said last week, and it's like, you can do the best you can to not trigger other people and try to use words and try to be as understanding and using the best agreeable words that you can think of. But you're never going to 100% be agreeable to everyone. And so I think really the most important thing to really consider are, what are the words that trigger you for whatever reason, whatever past experiences, whatever things, whatever words just don't give you a good feeling. And so you talked about it, like we discussed, you've discussed God, and there's something there that's just not feeling right. Using universe, using consciousness, using a word that gives you power, because we are creators and we create with our vibrations, with what we think. But part of that is the words we use that then translates to the feelings that we have using those words. And so if you feel good using, and so if light worker, for example, didn't work, using healer or using other words that feel good to you. When you are communicating with other people, if there's a word that isn't agreeable to them, try to pick a different word that is agreeable to them, and then maybe at a different time or whenever feels right, try to have compassion and understanding of why that word triggers them, and then use a word that fits, that will help them to become an agreeable conversation that will help give them power in a way. But I also loved what you said, Sherry, that really the key is, I mean, empowering because I think sometimes we use the word empower and we think, oh, we're empowering the other person, which means we're giving our energy away, which isn't really the case. The key is empowering yourself, really giving yourself strong energy. That way, when you are just being yourself, you are almost allowing them to just that's the crazy thing about words. I'm trying to figure out the right word here and I can't figure it out, where you are also empowering them while also empowering yourself at the same time. And that was one of the biggest keys, I think, and I think this is where Lorena wanted me to kind of go with this, is really figuring out what words, when you speak, really give power to yourself. And it could be you, like, like sometimes it's like, I want to feel good. And that could be a really good thing to say at times, but there's times where good can mean 35 different things. What direction do you want to go? Do you want to feel joyful? Do you want to feel jubilant? Do you want to feel in bliss? Do you want to feel peaceful? Do you want to feel, and really kind of owning that in and figuring out what words really give you the most power that you want to shoot for. Did that kind of cover it?
Yeah, well, and so really even it gives you awareness of what words you think of even when you're alone in your own thoughts. When you become aware of the power within the word, the vibration, the frequency, I mean, they've literally measured it. There's a book called Power versus Force. And it's a big scientific, statistics of words and what the meaning, the vibrational frequency behind it. And so when you use, I want to feel good. Okay, that might, like he said, that might be so broad, but if you're like, I like the feeling of bliss. I like the feeling of joy. I like the feeling of exuberance. I like the feeling of fun. You can see there's already a vibrational difference between good and fun or good and bliss, and something that simple. But what I've been working on recently with one of my mentors, because, life coaches and mentors always have a life coach and a mentor, really learning, you're always becoming more if you're seeking to always find ways to better yourself so that you can assist others if it's meant to be or whatnot. But what I've found even myself is, what words am I using to describe my life and myself? And Chris will catch me all the time. He's like, rephrase, because the word that I said was casting something that I don't want, something negative about myself or judgmental about myself or something that I can't do. And I don't even realize I'm saying it until it comes out. And I'm like, wow, that's what my thoughts are most of the time when I'm alone. And so when you become aware of the power of your thoughts in words and what that word is sending, then you can start to recognize in yourself what words you're using. And if you have someone in your life that can help you, you're like, then when you say can't or shouldn't, or some of those words that can have a meaning that you don't prefer, then you can replace it, so there's a bunch of modalities out there in the world for life tools on how to reframe, rephrase, cancel. There's a lot of tools that you can use, but in essence, the core of it is what vibration is behind that word that I'm using. What am I casting spells with my words, but in thoughts you're about yourself too. And so when you start to become aware of what you're thinking about and what you're speaking about yourself, you realize also what you're thinking about others, what you're saying to others, what they're saying to you. It's just this really fun rabbit hole to go down in with words. And then one thing that you were talking about, how you can share, and, you know, what reminded me of that empowerment, right? So just one thought I had about that was the candle effect. So if you have a candle and you light someone else's candle, your candle is still lit, but you can light 1,000 candles, but your candle has to be lit. And so I do like that, empowering yourself, lighting, making sure your candle is lit, and then you can light 1,000 candles and empower everybody, but you're also empowered. So those are my 2 cents on the words and the empowerment word.
Oh, thank you for sharing, both of you. That was great. You know, and what it did for me is it reminded me of those basic words that are put out there a lot, and not everyone thinks about it, like programming or program. So we talk about being programmed our whole life, or, you know, whatever the belief system was put into us, you know, our whole lives by our parents or whatever. But when you think of the word program, and you think of the word or the TV, the TV has programs on it. So think about what that means and what they're doing. The TV has channels, and another, you know, so channel, you can flip the channel or tune in to another channel. And so also too, when we have connection to source, we're tuning in, like we did last night when we heard the singing, right? Or we're channeling, hearing it through that channel. And so the TV has those channels. So we really need to be careful of what we're watching and listening to and bringing into our own self, because that's what it's meant to do. And the word spell, like you said, the spell casting. And for those that don't think that that's real, it is. And when I was in California recently, I saw an ad on the TV at my mother's because she was watching TV, and it was for Disney. They were advertising for the Halloween month of part of September and October. And they said, the spell has been cast. I mean, they tell you right there what they're doing. And if you think that it's just make believe or that it's not real, think again, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're trying to program you through their TV shows. They want you to tune the channel in to theirs so that you're watching what they're putting out there. And they want you to come into the park with your children so that you can be under that casted spell that they're putting you under. So words have really huge meanings behind them. And this is a conversation that could go on all night. But, you know, as you were talking about that, Chris, is just like, oh, I can't believe I didn't mention this earlier, because it was just meant to be now. So.
Well, and I love the programming, sorry, but not sorry. See, there's another word. That's another word for another day. But programming and channels, right? Okay, so that's another, I think we could do I think maybe it would be fun to do another word night, because channel is somebody who's channeling something is a trigger for a lot of people. And programming is a trigger word for a lot of people, and has a lot of things that we could go into. But if you take that in context for TV and what they are doing in programming and saying, hey, watch this channel or watch this channel. And so what, to me, with the law of attraction, what I do is, when you're channeling something in the field, in the creative field that we talked about earlier, that's channeling. And so when you are on the channel of fear, anxiety, depression, sadness, things that are heavy, dark, and whatnot, you're thinking those thoughts. You're thinking in words or pictures. and then you're sending and broadcasting that program, you're channeling that. And so really the law of attraction is like a radio station or a TV station. So you're on a channel that the more you put out there of those kinds of things, you're going to get that back, because that's the channel you're on. And so it's kind of a simple way to say, oh, well, I'm going to change the channel. And so that's why I mentioned, 68 seconds, try to change that channel at least for a minute, and find something that feels better, because then you can say, oh, I'm going to find something to be grateful for. And then that is that channel. So just like a radio station, you're not going to, turn it on to country and get heavy metal, or, that kind of thing is. So it's kind of just a fun way to think of how the channeling works. And your brain is really like a computer, it's the hardware, and whatever you're tuning into is the software and the programming. And so I just wanted to throw that in because it was a good tie-in.
It was, yes, very much so. Thank you.
This was so fun. Thank you, Sherry, for doing this.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I enjoy it so much. And we have such great conversations all the time with, all kinds of different people. And I'm just really glad that each and every one of you showed up tonight and contributed what you wanted to. And it was beautiful. So thank you for all of you for being here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you guys.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call it the end then. Until next week, I hope you can join me again. And until then, love and light be with all of you.
Yes, thank you. Much love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So.
Nice meeting you, Bonnie.
Nice
see you,
to meet all
Michelle.
of you. Really nice
Good
to
night.
meet you.
Bye
night,
to
guys.
Ravens. Bye, Chris.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Have a
Cash.
good night.
Bye,
Bye
Kosh.
bye.
Yes,
Night,
you
Josh.
too. Have a good night. We'll
My
see you
old
on
bro.
Sunday.
Bye bye.